We're excited today. Good morning, everyone. And welcome to Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I would like to take a moment to please ask everyone to take a look at their cell phones and silence them at this time. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, and whatever your faith tradition, you're welcome here. My name is Kate Kinney, and I minister here at QUUF. Kathy Stevenson is serving as our worship assistant. And I'd like to begin this service by acknowledging that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the Skallam and Chimicum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain their homelands. As we call in our time together, let us settle our minds, calm our hearts with the ringing of our chime. Great to be together. I'd like to welcome Pat Rodgers and Helen Lauritzen now, who will lead us in our call to community hymn 1002, Comfort Me. Please rise in body or spirit. Okay.
Sing with me.
Thank you, Pat and Helen. And this morning, Steve Blair and Luke O'Hara will be lighting our chalice, and Luke is in the Coming of Age program.
Thank you, Pat and Helen. Please join me now in our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice, remembering those who walk the path of suffering. May the light find them, hold them, and honor them. And may they have the strength to walk on, knowing that they are surrounded in light.
Thank you, Luke. Our opening words are by Leonard Cohen. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And our responsive reading is a prayer of loving kindness, adapted from traditional Buddhist meditation. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be peaceful and at ease. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be peaceful and at ease. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be peaceful and at ease. Wow, that's really something to feel that coming back. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Bo Ogren, our Director of Family Ministry. Bo?
Good morning, everyone. And it's happy spring break in our kid world as well. This Sunday, we are working on appreciating the light in our littles class. We are celebrating our earth-based traditions in our middle class, and then in our middle school class, we are preparing for a trip to the Hindu Cultural Center in Bothell, and so we are exploring Hinduism today. And also, I forgot one thing. I'll be right back. It is also Easter next week. And so next week after the services at 11:30, we're going to be meeting in the north parking lot and traversing over to the golf course. There is no ditch. People keep on thinking there's a ditch. There's no ditch. It is a nice, smooth pathway. And we will be heading over there for our Easter egg hunt, and everyone is absolutely invited. So tell your friends. So now, those of you who are on our aisles, will you please rise in body or spirit to create an arch for our children, and we will sing them to our classes.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. We should challenge both down that aisle.
We'd like to welcome newcomers at this point. We acknowledge and welcome those of you that are visiting this morning. If you're online, please say hello in the chat and where you are from. The chat section can be found below or on the right side of the video when it's in full screen. If you're attending in person, we invite you to rise as able or raise your hand so we may welcome you. Welcome. We are very glad you're here, and please stay and help us eat our brunch-a-palooza later. We're both glad you're here in person and those virtually. We will now receive the offering, which today goes to our local food banks. The first Sunday of every month since 1997, we have called the Hope Sunday, and HOPE is an acronym for Helping Our People Eat. And before the pandemic, it was actually the children who would come around. In fact, Luke was probably one of them, and his sisters, to take that offering, and I hope sometime we can get that back. If you'd like to donate to this worthy cause, you have a few options. For those viewing online, just text the amount you'd like in to the number shown at the bottom of the screen, or go to our website, QUUF.org, and click on the giving link, or simply mail a check to the office and put offering or hope in the memo line. And we can start to reclaim that tradition. For those in the sanctuary, the ushers will come among you and receive the offering while we have the pleasure of listening to Pamela Roberts and Helen Lauritzen play Elgar's Chanson de Nuit for the cello and piano. Thank you all.
Thank you, Helen and Pamela. I almost feel we could stop our service right now. Some announcements. Next Sunday, we will be celebrating a flower communion. So I would ask you each to find the most beautiful, wondrous flower that you can find in this universe and bring it to the service to celebrate spring, Easter, whatever is in your heart. And I want to instigate the first annual and probably only Wonderful Hat Sunday. So, you know, I came from New York City and I would go to the Easter parade every year, and I crave hats. So bring a hat, wear it during our coffee hour, and there will be a prize. God knows what that prize will be, but there will be something wondrous, okay? And also, as Bo said, I just encourage all of us to, next Sunday, to be with the children, and they are going to be coming to the coffee hour too. So I think there's a message from a member of our Healthy Community team.
Joanna Sanders of the Healthy Community Team, and we will not be having our conversation circle today because we're going to be having a brunch, so there is no real announcement. Thank you.
So fun, okay. And I think Tiny and Wally have a few things to tell us.
Hello, everybody. It's me again, Tiny Finnegan, your pledge ambassador. Well, it's the big day. Can you believe it? It's April 2nd. Yes, it's Pledge Sunday, the deadline for getting pledge forms in, and Brunchapalooza. I am super excited about that, and I'm super excited for you to meet my cousin, Wally Finnegan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Wally Finnegan. I just swam in from Orcas Island, and boy, are my fins tired. No? I've pointed my whole life to say that. But seriously, folks, unexpected low tides almost kept me from being here today. That would have been a fine kettle of fish. But I made it, now I'm happy as, dare I say it, a clam?
Oh, Wally. You really got the sense of humor in our family. Speaking of family, my sisters Joy and Echo are here today too. And seeing the portrait of Grandpa Finnegan has got me thinking about family. But don't get Wally started on genealogy.
I'm proud of our heritage. On our mother's side, we're from Finland, and on our father's side, we're from the UK, well, specifically Wales.
Wally, it's amazing the things you have learned about our family and the medical history you stumbled on.
It's okay, we can say it. I figured out that a breech births run in our family. What?
Some may say that's TMI, too much information, Wally.
Well, I never minded making waves. I'll swim against the tide, but I see your point, and I know people are really waiting to hear tiny details about today's Brunchapalooza. Tiny, take it away.
I realized for some of you this is your first Brunchapalooza. So I made up this little guide that you have. It's a checklist so you won't miss any of the fun. I'm not going to let you flounder. Wally, I've told Joy and Echo I don't think the Finnegans should enter the raffle today. If one of us won, it might look kind of fishy.
So true, true. Tiny, it's unfathomable to me how much you and QUUF have accomplished with this pledge campaign. So many volunteers stepping up, so much good food, so many surprises. Did I hear you even have my favorite candy down at the pledge table?
Yes, Wally, we have saltwater taffy. You know, the pledge table is really the pledge headquarters today. You'll find it in the fellowship hall by the piano. It has the special pledge form mailbox that Mark Byrne made for us, and people to answer questions. Extra pledge forms, that's where you enter the raffle, and there's even a special information table about whales nearby.
And saltwater taffy.
Yes, Wally, saltwater taffy. If you are at home right now watching online, please pop over and join us after the service if you can. Come join the fun. And everyone, remember to wear a mask when you're inside if you're not eating or drinking.
One last question, Tiny. Your mission was to create a campaign to get people to seriously consider their pledge, then give generously and get their pledge forms in by April 2nd. How in Lord's name did you come up with your motto?
Well, at first the motto was going to be, everything will be all right. But then I got to know more about QUUF and thinking about it, and I realized what a resourceful, energetic, get things done, heartfelt group like this, it would make much more sense for the motto to be, where there's a whale, there's a way. Say it with me. Where there's a whale, there's a way. Because I know we can do this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiny and Wally. And now, David Rim, where are you? Okay, everybody, grab your seats. Physically grab your seats. Hold on. I thought you'd be dancing.
I am here on behalf of the Board of Trustees, of which I am a member, and the Ministerial Hiring Committee, which has been my pleasure to serve for the last 3 or 4 months. I can't really see who all is here, but I want to mention the committee. Thank you. I've served, as many of you have, on lots of committees. It seems to be our raison d'etre of this congregation. But this is the best committee I've ever served on. These people worked hard, they worked energetically, and they really care about the future of this congregation. And if they're here, I'd like for you to stand. I'll start with those that I know that are here. I know Dean is here, Dean Carr. The other members, Sarah Walker. Is Sarah here? Deborah Bouchard. Linda Spratt. Rosemarie Mende, and our chairman, who really set the tone and pace for us and kept us on task, Brian Rodgers. is with his family across the water today and couldn't be here. Thank you all, and give these people a round of applause and thanks. So we have a new minister. And before I tell you who she is, I want to just share one thing from her application. If I can find it in my notes here. When she had to tell us about her vision, her mission, her covenant, her approach to theology and this role, she wrote, among other things, this message which she used on her telephone. This is not an answering machine. This is a questioning machine. And you know what the questions are. Who are you and what do you want? Take care how you answer. Our new minister is the Reverend Dr. Linda Hart. She comes to us, or she will come to us starting in August, from the Tahoma Unitarian Universalist congregation in Tacoma, Washington, where she's served for almost 10 years. Before that, she was an interim at Evergreen Unitarian Universalist Church, and other positions of note. I want to mention that she served, and not many resumes probably say this, as minister of the Richmond and Putney Unitarian Church, London, England, where she served for 5 years. We asked her, and I'm going to share with you her words from her application and interview. We asked her why she was seeking new ministry now. And she said, I'm seeking the next congregation to journey with you for my career and my career. Problems and goals I find interesting include how we find our way back to relationship after conflict, how congregations build relationships across differences, and how to create and sustain beloved community. It's a worthwhile goal for us, I think. And the more I read back through my interview notes and consider her application, the more I learn and the more pleased I am that this is our selection. I think we're all going to benefit from the Reverend Dr. Hart's presence among us. She's a lifelong Unitarian. She started out with Unitarian Sunday school when she was a little girl and going to civil rights demonstrations in the white nation's capital with her mother. She says the civil rights movement has been part of her life since her childhood. She's a supporter of Black Lives Matter and has preached on the importance to those of us who are white in particular. I think that's all of us practically, not quite, and have preached on the importance to those of us who are white in particular to continue to learn about the systems that oppression that continued to harm BIPOC folk. The best description of her theology is that she's pragmatic. A true belief has less to do with the intellectual and rational content of the belief, but rather centers on what it enables in us to learn or to live worthy lives and give us a context for the joys and troubles of what spills into our lives. With that as a guide, she says she can appreciate those who love Jesus and find truth in his life and death. And she can also find resonance with the most, if you can't measure or weigh it, it's not real humanist. She's been married to her husband Peter for 25 years. They have an adult daughter who lives in Salt Lake City who is getting married this summer. They share their home with an elderly dog named Cooper and a cat. She is a breast cancer survivor, among other things, who religiously, she says, practices yoga and has recently completed teacher training. She is an avid knitter, which is another part of her meditation practice. Dr. Hart will be joining us in August, and the next step, she'll be signing her contract soon. It's all finalized. She's announcing this to her congregation this Sunday morning as well. And we hope that some of you will volunteer to serve on a committee to help them get settled into Port Townsend, to greet them, to answer questions, to help them find out where the best bookstores and pubs are. So thank you for your attention, and I'll be here for a short while after the service at the brunch, and I'll answer any questions that I can. Thank you all very much, and let's go.
Thanks, David, and thanks to the committee who put so much strong, wonderful work into finding this. It sounds like a really exciting new minister for all of us. Thank you. So for our joys and sorrows, we now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life, and thus we place this first stone, thinking in particular of, once again, the families and the communities hit by gun violence, especially those in Nashville. We implore our government to help us move forward from this illness that is in our country. We also light a candle for Christians who begin Holy Week today, and Jews who begin the celebration of Passover this week, and Muslims who continue their fast for Ramadan. It is an extremely holy week in this world. And I think when all of these spirits align, we hope and we pray for peace. Within this congregation, we place a stone today for Shireen Binney, who is recovering from a triple series of medical events: a broken wrist, a melanoma tumor removed, and then a badly broken leg. Shireen, a Buddhist practitioner who led Buddhist meditation at QUUF for many years, has gotten through by listening to Dharma talks, a loving husband, devoted friends. Shireen, QUUF holds you up. We light a candle for Nancheska and Ray Schroff. Nancheska says, "It is with great deal of sorrow that I share that my husband Ray died on Wednesday, March 29th at 9 a.m. We had been married for 55 years, and he was the love of my life. So much love to you, Nancheska." We light a candle for Bob Francis, who suffered a minor stroke. He's now at home, and Bob, we wish you healing and many blessings. We light a candle for happy grandma to be, Jess Schumacher. She's terrifically thrilled to share that her son, Christian Brewick's partner, Jules, is pregnant, and they are expecting a baby May 10th, and we are told that the baby is approximately the size of a pineapple this week. And I'm assuming just as sweet. Jess will be traveling to Vermont to meet the wee one and just finished crocheting her first of several baby bonnets. Congrats, Jess. And we light a candle for the imminent release of Tokita, some of us know as Lolita, an orca who was captured over 50 years ago from Ken Cove. She's been kept in a tank by herself at a marine park in Florida. Now, hopefully within a year, she will be brought back home to the Salish Sea in a protected environment, not released into the wild, but able to dive and communicate with her family. May she be protected. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows I've just shared, but also thinking of such joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed, but of no less importance. I invite you now into a moment of silence.
The reading this morning is by Seamus Henney, called When Hope and History Rhyme. Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong inflicted and endured. The innocent in jails beat on their bars together. A hunger striker's father stands in the graveyard dumb. The police widow in veils faints at the funeral home. History says, don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that further shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracle and cures and healing wells. Call miracle self-healing, the utter self-revealing double take of feeling. If there's fire on the mountain, or lightning, or storm, and a God speaks from the sky, that means someone is hearing the outcry and the birth cry of new life at its term. Our special music today is Rachmaninoff's Vocalese, performed by Helen and Pamela.
with deep thanks. It seems that the topic today should be on joy, since we heard about the wonderful event of Reverend Dr. Linda Hart saying yes. And the topic is on suffering. So why suffering? I'm one who, if we are really going to celebrate next week Flower Communion and Easter and the whole movement of spring, all religious traditions say that first we look into our heart and let go of that which is holding us down, where we suffer or pain, and this is the week to let it go. At one time, I taught 13-year-olds. Folks, that is a group that knows how to suffer. Someone was always breaking up with someone, and everything was wrong and backwards about the early teenage body. And what about their parents? Yep. Most 13-year-olds see them as necessary but insufferable. And despite the everyday angst, there were students who experienced real deep pain. The student who did not want to talk about his parents' divorce, the child who had just lost a parent, the young girl who was adopted and was academically trying to catch up, the repercussions of a student who took her own life, the student who lost her sister as a result of a horrible accident. And then there was this lovely boy who happened to be a diabetic. He asked if he could come into my room to administer an insulin shot. He was in emotional pain. Why me, Kate? Why me? I said I really did not know. And then there was a young girl who decided that she was tired of hiding her issue. She had a hidden urostomy bag. But one day she made a bag to cover it. The bag was colorful and lovely, and she came to school wearing it on the outside of her clothing. A 13-year-old girl. That is courage, folks. And then I saw something wonderful happen. The kids began to see that everyone was carrying something, and they helped each other. They helped each other. Everyone is carrying something. What is your burden? Your suffering. Have you shared it? Do you hide it or carry it in a brightly covered bag for all to see? And countries carry suffering, as do church communities. Do we hide our suffering or share it so that it can be healed? All the world religions try to answer the question about suffering. I really do not want to do a metaphysical response to the why me question. I'd rather hear a story. So I've selected stories from 3 different religious traditions where people share a bit of their lives. In the Buddhist tradition, suffering is the first rule of life. In some cases, suffering can be an effect of our own negligence or communal greed, or suffering can come from nature that has no motive to harm. Pico Ayur, who is not a Buddhist, tells the story of accompanying the Dalai Lama 8 months after a large tsunami hit a Japanese fishing village, and it had been laid waste. He describes the scene. Gravestones lay tilted at crazy angles when they had not collapsed altogether. What once a year before had been a thriving network of schools and homes was now just rubble. 3 orphans barely out of kindergarten stood in their blue school uniforms to greet him. And there were dozens of colored boxes containing the remains of those who had no surviving relatives to claim them. As the Dalai Lama got out of his car to greet survivors, he held some, and he blessed others. He said, Please help everyone else and work hard. That is the best offering you can make to the dead. And as he turned, Ayur saw that a tear was running down the Dalai Lama's face. The Dalai Lama told the people that they were not alone, and he told stories from his own life about when he had suffered intensely in exile and how he had healed. And when he left, the people began to put their lives and their work back together again. He healed by his presence. And the Dalai Lama's tear, Ayur learned that we must be strong enough to witness suffering and yet human enough to know that we are not master of it. That is the beginning of compassion. In the Jewish tradition, I pick a story from the book Night by Elie Wiesel, a survivor of Auschwitz. This is a hard story, folks. The SS hung 2 Jewish men and a boy before the assembled inhabitants of the camp. The men died quickly, but the death struggle of the boy lasted half an hour. "Where is God? Where is he?" a man behind me asked. As the boy, after a long time, was still in agony on the rope, I heard the man cry again, "Where is God now?" And I heard a voice within me answer, "God's here, hanging on the gallows." Within Jewish religious thinking, this would be understood as the Shekinah, or the indwelling presence of the divine in the world. And that presence is there in the joy or in the deepest pain. Again, when I speak the word God this morning, insert the word that makes the most sense for you. For me, it means the inherent dignity, the spark of life and light that is in all created beings, that which makes us stop in our tracks when we touch that deep source of beauty, awe, and wonder. It is our breath. Wiesel saw this boy as the center of the universe. And there, at that point, he was suffering. The suffering was horrible, but it created a link in Wiesel that allowed him to continue. He understood that the sacred could exist even in the most horrific times and places, and he felt less alone. Wiesel went on to live a good life in New York City. He married, had a child, certainly a sign of hope, but he never stopped telling stories of remembrance, stories that honor the part of us that takes the pain and tries to bring some meaning to that which is unspeakable. He told stories about how each of us in our culture can become diabolical, but there exists a spark beyond all pain. And we are responsible for nurturing that spark and giving it away. In Jewish Kabbalistic teaching, the divine does not forsake, but enters that which is forsaken. Imagine how each of us would feel if we knew that that which others reject about us can be whole, can be good. Now, Wiesel is not saying that we take that which is not created of love and hold it up, polish it, and it will be good enough. Or that the Nazi terror was to be wiped clean. No, never. But from his tradition, he is saying that during our suffering, we do not stand alone. The energy of divine compassion and courage, however you define it, will be with us. And then we become sparks of that same compassion as we work for truth, justice, and equity. Perhaps each of us has had a moment like Wiesel's. I rarely, and I mean rarely, tell this personal story because people never know what to do with it, and mostly they stare at me. My first husband, Paul, got sick on our honeymoon. and died a few weeks later. As a merchant marine, he brought food to soldiers in Vietnam and caught a rare disease. There was obviously no words for this experience. But one morning, I was walking to class. I was still a graduate student, and I saw a photo on the front page of the New York Times, and it was of a woman dressed in a hijab who had lost her son, and she was holding him with such deep pain and love. She was holding him, and I was zapped, as was Weissel in his story, by the molecules in my body holding her up. I became that woman in the hijab. I have no words to express it. What suffering can do is to see beauty and understand that we become the other. And that creates a space of compassion that will not leave us. The noun, the verb, and the adjective form of this word for compassion are all related to the Hebrew word for womb, raka, the place we grow before birth. Again, the place we grow before birth. And I don't believe that we can hold much compassion until we have faced suffering, own it, move forward with our lives. We can become part of the Shekinah. The Christian story I'm about to tell is from the 12th century and is about the most preeminent philosopher of medieval times, Peter Abelard. He lived alone except for his servant Thibaut. One evening, the two of them were ready for dinner when suddenly they heard an unearthly scream. Abelard was shaken and feared that a child was being attacked. Thibaut, however, realized after the second scream that it was the sound of a rabbit caught in a trap. "Oh, a rabbit," said Thibaut. He listened. "There's nothing to worry about. He will die quickly in the trap." But Abelard felt differently. He moved, and the two rushed down toward the scream. "Down by the river," said Thibaut. "I saw rabbits playing when I was coming home. This poor creature unknowingly triggered the trap." And Abelard and Thibaut plunged through the thicket and reached the young rabbit. And the rabbit stopped shrieking when they stooped over it, reacting from either exhaustion, expectancy, or perhaps fear. And Thibaut held the teeth of the trap open, and Abelard gathered the little creature in his hands. It lay for a moment breathing, then in some blind recognition of the kindness that it had received, it thrust its small head and rested against Abelard's arm and died. It was in that last confiding thrust that broke Abelard's heart. "Thibaut," he said, "do you think there is a God at all? Whatever has this little one done to deserve such pain?" Thibaut nodded. "I know," he said. "Only I think that God is in it too." In my eyes, it was Abelard who brought the love, or again, the Shekinah. He left his warm dinner to enter the pain of another. Abelard built a way of making meaning out of suffering. We can learn how to love by preventing if we can, healing if possible, and being present if all else fails. We know that we humans can enter suffering of another, and from that suffering, we can birth love for the one who is suffering. It is a cycle of love and caring. Abelard wrote many books from his experience. He took apart the traditional story of the crucifixion and made it a story not of sacrifice, but one of love. He saw Jesus as one who spoke truth to power and paid the price. In other words, Jesus acted out of a vision that was larger than himself. He acted from love. Well, how did this influence Abelard's own life? Well, pick up some of the beautiful medieval love stories about Peter Abelard and Heloise. They are some of the most poignant love stories in medieval literature. And perhaps a wee rabbit gave him the courage to face unbearable obstacles to his own love. Now, perhaps this all sounds very romantic and far from the raw pain of suffering, and that's true. The only thing that I do know is that we're all in this life together, and part of our calling is to look suffering straight in the eye, not walk away. The suffering earth, the suffering world, the suffering country, and suffering parts of QUUF can only heal if we touch the pain, acknowledge it, speak it, and hold it in our arms. To vow to change the changeable. That is love. And it is a responsibility. And it is honoring the truth that is in us. I told you about my Paul's death, and this is how I healed. A fellow graduate student had a key to my apartment. She lived in a different New York City borough, and every night she came on the subway, walked to my apartment, put the key in my lock, and in silence, she slept on my couch night after night. And unbelievable as this may be, I did the same for her when her partner died from breast cancer the next year. Key in a lock. Healing does not happen until we give away the key, when we allow someone to help us because we simply cannot do it alone. Suffering, yes, it is here, but folks, love is stronger. Love is stronger. I do not believe that suffering has the final word. If we give the ultimate power to our suffering, we have lost something so much more powerful. We have lost the ability to hold the rabbit in our arms. I have asked hundreds of men and women who have lost their partners if they would forgo the love that they experienced in the relationship so that they would not be in pain, not be in suffering. And not one person has ever said that they would forgo the love. Not one. So, what do I take from all of this? Personal stories are not dogma, they are experience. And what I heard from the three writers is that suffering is not to be sought after, but that indeed it will come. But the important thing is to acknowledge its presence, not hide from it, look it in the eye. And as humans, we help one another. We can choose to breathe in another's pain so that all can be well, so that we know that they know they're not alone. And we can breathe out and release them and release ourselves from suffering that will kill. It is a cycle. I made a retreat with Ram Dass before he had his stroke. He said, quote, "Suffering is grace, a gift in order to awaken you," end of quote. He was walking before me on a path, and I ran up and caught him, and I wanted to ask a question about what he had said about suffering. And he feigned to fall over, and I grabbed him, and I pulled him up. He almost hit the concrete. Ram Dass turned to me and he said, "Kate, that's all you need to know." And he walked on. As Christians near the end of Lent, and as Muslims fast in Ramadan, communities around the world are acknowledging suffering. And this week, religious communities once again cry out against gun violence, especially towards our children. And more children and more churches are speaking out against an immigration policy that spawned 38 deaths by fire and 30 more injuries. Suffering does not mean that we endure. Rather, it can spur us to action. In the stories that we heard today, our religious traditions say to engage, see the sacred in each other, and speak out if we can stop the suffering of one creature. Each of you received a small bag when you came in. If you don't have one, you can grab one when you leave. Could you decorate it? Could you make it your own? Could you place your suffering in it? Wear it on the outside of your clothing? Maybe someone will ask you about it and you can tell them your story. Perhaps they will help you carry it. Perhaps they will grab you as you fall. Perhaps you will see the bag on another and say, please tell me your story. Tell me your story. Perhaps this community can indeed release its pain. We work through it, folks. We acknowledge anger. And I've heard plenty of it this year. We let it go, and we hold each other in love. If we do not do that, we will suffer. That's how it works. If we do release the pain, we become the Shekinah, the divine presence in the world. May it be so. Our closing hymn is hymn number 7, The Leaf Unfurling. Please stand as you are willing or able. Please join us in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we again. Next week, I'll be speaking on the topic of transformation, yours, mine, and that of the chocolate bar. We hope you can attend. Our postlude today has very little to do with suffering. Let's just get that suffering out of us. Everybody shake it up. Woo! Okay? Got it? Okay. It has everything to do with the grand brunchapalooza that awaits you all after the service as our annual pledge campaign winds up with a great big bang. And please join Kristin and Otto singing Baby Beluga. And always remember, where there's a whale, there's a way.
Baby bird in the deep blue sea, swim so wild and you swim so free, heaven above and sea yonder where the dolphins play, where you dive and splash all day. Waves roll in and the waves roll out. See the water squirting out of your spout. Baby beluga, baby beluga. Where's the one at the top? Sing for all your friends we like to. Here we go, you. Dark and you're home and bed, Warlock's long in your waterbed. Moon is shining and the stars are out. Good night, good whale, good night. Ah, baby beluga, baby beluga. Is the water warm? Is your mama home with you? So happy. Oh, well. Yes, swim so wild and swim so free. Heaven above and sea below. Just a little white whale on the go. You're just a little white whale on the go.